The St. Louis Blues have bounced back and even their series with the Winnipeg Jets at 2-2. But what will it take for the Blues to pull off the upset? Haley Taylor Simon of Locked On Blues is here to talk about that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Blues, the very happy Haley Taylor Simon. And going into the last couple of games down 2-0, did you expect the Blues had this comeback in them?
Oh, 100%. I said on my Locked On Blues episode before heading into Game 3 that the Blues were going to win the next two at home. This reminds me a lot of 2019. For those that maybe don't recall, in 2019, the Blues played the Jets in the first round, and the Blues won the first two games, and then the Jets won the next two games. And with the series tied, the Blues were able to win the next two and win it in 6. So all along when I said Blues in 6, it was because even though they were down, I still felt like there was some magic in the air in St. Louis.
So what was the biggest difference between the first two games and the second two games, besides location?
Actually playing offense. That was a huge factor. Jordan Binnington looked great in the first two games, despite the fact that the Jets won. But those were games, even though Winnipeg did win by a couple goals in the one and then a 1 goal in the other game, where it's not like they had these blowout wins. And Binnington was really on his A game, but the defense looked lackadaisical. Offense, there was no offensive zone pressure put on by the Blues. And that was something that Coach Montgomery said that this team needed to change. And not only did the Blues put more offensive zone pressure on, Coach Montgomery also changed the lines. And on the first line, centering, you have Robert Thomas. And then on the left, initially, you had Snuggie. And on the right, you had Bushi. He switched them. And that makes a difference. And then we see Buchnevich get a hat trick in Game 3. And it just goes to show that sometimes switching things up and tweaking the lines, it does go a long way.
Talk to me about Jake Neighbors, a 3-point game in Game 4, a goal and 2 helpers. What has he been contributing to the offense?
Yeah, so Jake Neighbors was somebody that I was actually a little bit disappointed in the series. We didn't see a lot from him. And today we saw the Jake Neighbors that we were all excited about seeing. And I think it goes to show, 4 out of the 5 goals scored today by the Blues were players that didn't score at all in the series. Robert Thomas was the only one that actually scored multiple goals in the series. I think that we're seeing a Jake Neighbors that's more motivated. It's probably very inspiring, and I'm curious to what he has to say following the game, but it's probably very inspiring to see players all around you that haven't done much in the series shine, especially the way they did in Game 3. You have the home crowd of Enterprise, and I have to tell you, it's one of the best playoff atmospheres in the NHL, while we don't have the whiteout, which Winnipeg has. Pretty cool. It's also a great home crowd, and I feel like there was just a lot of momentum in today's game. And Jake, I'm sure he knows that he was not playing the way that he should be playing.
Give me a player on the Blues that isn't making headlines, but is quietly contributing to the success they've had in the last 2 games.
Now, if this is a national media thing, I can say
Yes.
all of them, but but one player, and it seems like a little bit of an obvious player, but it is our captain, Brayden Schenn. Schenn did have a goal today, first goal of the series. But the thing about Brayden Schenn, and I say this all along, he's such a physical player, but it gets overshadowed by some of the other things that this team does. Like Cam Fowler has been playing fantastic. I think that's been making headlines at least. I mean, he did break a franchise record in the last game with 5 points, which is most points by a defenseman. But I don't even sometimes read some of the national stuff, so I couldn't tell you. But with Brayden Schenn, the big headline in games 1 and 2 was the battle between the Schenn brothers with Luke on the Jets and Brayden on the Blues. And ever since the Blues began to win and play good hockey, I haven't heard one story about the two guys being brothers, because I guess for their narrative, it was, big brother beating little brother, and now the narrative has switched. But Braden is so physical. He contributes a lot. And you know what, Gil? I want to say one other player, actually two. I'm going to give them a shout out. Oscar Sundquist and Nathan Walker. Those are two of the most hardworking guys on the team, and they don't ever get enough recognition. You see Sundquist, right? And I can even go back to games 1 and 2 when the Blues were losing and they were down. He will chase after every single puck and put his all in. And we saw that with today's game. I mean, he takes these hard hits, and he's not afraid to hit guys either, but he's such a physical player, and so is Nathan Walker. And I feel like I could go on rants about this, so I'm going to leave it at that. But they're just players that they're all in, and they deserve to have some more props.
How important is Jordan Binnington and the fact that he's won a Stanley Cup to this team's confidence and their ultimate success?
Oh, boy. Binnington is our guy. The Blues would not be in this position without him. You see, I'm a believer that Jordan Binnington is not done playing his best hockey. And a lot of people say, well, he's, in his low he's 31. So he's in his 30s now. His time's expiring. I don't see that at all. He has been rock solid. And the goal that was let in today, that Kyle Connor scored on the Jets yesterday, was not necessarily his fault. The net was a little bit open, and Colton Parayko was supposed to block it, but he didn't close his leg, so there was space between. But Binnington is so good. I can't even put into words how great he is. I mean, Winnipeg, they had 31 shot attempts and only one went in. So that just goes to show you, when the best point team in the NHL, because I still don't think they were the best team, but in points, best team, puts up 30 shot attempts on goal, and your goalie is able to save them, that just goes to show that Binnington is something special. I also will say this based on a hot take. I think Binnington, out of all the goalies in the playoffs, as I've been watching almost every single game, he looks the best.
You guys managed to chase Connor Hellebuyck, who is considered the best goalie by many in the NHL, favorite to win the Vezina Trophy. What does that do for the Blues' confidence, and how important is it as far as going forward in this series is concerned?
Oh boy, it's been fun. It's funny. I'm cracking up because the fan base is so funny. They were chanting Connor, and then after he gets pulled for the second time now in the series, they kept on chanting, we want Connor back. I think it really goes to show that this team knows how to break Connor Hellebuyck. And that was another thing I correctly predicted here in Locked On Blues as well. And this is something that I'm going to continue to talk about, because Connor Hellebuyck is good, right? And I've watched a lot of hockey with the Jets this season. But the one tendency that I noticed when a couple goals go in past him, and they're kind of like fluky goals, some of the goals I feel like any goalie can see if it goes in the 5-hole and it's just like a beautiful goal, you kind of can't stop that. But sometimes like those fluky ones where it bounces off like a body part, like what we saw today from Jake Neighbors, those kind of goals mess him up. And I watched a lot of tapes of him because I was doing my research, right? Gil, I had to be prepared on who the Blues were going up against. I feel like I'm a part of the team at this point. And that's why I locked on Blues when I said, hey, if the Blues are able to get a couple sneaky goals past him, goals that are going to frustrate him, he's done. And that is why, for me, I was actually surprised that they allowed him to start in the final frame and they didn't just, pull him after the second frame, because once he's off and he's beatable. Jordan Binnington, on the other hand, what I will say is we've had games this season where Binnington was pulled. Obviously, Joel Hofer, I don't expect to see him start at all in this playoff series. But again, in the regular season, the goal is to get points and to win. In the playoffs, you want to keep your best guy in, even though it might be a little bit ugly, just because of a mental thing, right? Because now Connor Hellebuyck's going back to Winnipeg, knowing that the 2 games that he played in St. Louis, he got pulled. I can't even imagine how you recover from that mentally. So I guess going on really fast about Binnington is, even though he's had those games where he's been pulled, he'll go back in the next game in the regular season and he'll play some great hockey in net. So that's why for me, I feel like maybe him winning a Stanley Cup, as we kind of the main point of the question before I went on a bit of a rant, that does play a factor because he had to play a lot of tough games. I mean, playing Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals and having to be that composed, I'm sure. And again, I would love to talk to Binnington Nail. I talked to him at the beginning of the season, but Nail, I want to know, did that still impact you to this day, that Game 7? Because for me, I look back at that Game 7, I think that was the turning point for him when he went from being, just this great rookie to being the franchise guy.
Well, it's a best of 3 series now. We'll see how this one plays out. Haley, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find the podcast here on YouTube at Locked On Blues. I post every single day with the playoffs, and especially when the Blues are alive. So you can make sure to check that out. On Twitter at Locked On Blues, I now live tweet during every single playoff game. Even though, and I have to say, these late night puck drops are brutal to me, but I set an alarm for every 15 minutes. So even when I'm falling asleep, I get back up again. But the Blues have been awesome. It's been fun on my own Twitter at Haley T. Simon, but I would follow the Locked On Blues account because that's the only account that I'm logged into these days.
All right, Haley, thank you so much.
I'm excited, Gil. This is good.
I love it. I love it.
I love it.